I'm Diane, and it's December. It's actually December 19th. And we have had, again, crazy weather. We had a storm that blew through here yesterday, starting Sunday night into Monday, that brought 60-degree temperatures up from the south, 50-mile-an-hour winds, and torrential rain. It stopped the ferry. It was just wild. And today I have the door open. It's sunny. The seas are calming, the ferries are running, and it feels like a spring day. So I have my fun little faux leather little pants on and my little mohair top on, but I had to open up the window so I could get through this podcast. New England, it's just, you never know. And they say if you don't like the weather, just hold on a little bit and it's probably going to change within the hour, and that is the truth. So, oh my goodness, it's been a glorious couple of weeks. Went to my mother's garden club luncheon, which as always was lovely, did not disappoint. Beautiful Christmas tree decorated, poinsettias and or Australian pines, Norfolk pines on every table. Lovely little wrapped boxes with truffles and chocolates in them for each place setting. Food was delicious. All the ladies had their holiday outfits on. It's always a treat for me to be able to attend that luncheon with my mom. Spent the night, went out to dinner with my sister-in-law and cousin, and spent some time with my niece. So again, it was girl power, lovely woman power. And so now this week, we have been able to just stay home and enjoy our home and enjoy our decorations, listen to some nice Christmas music, bake some cookies, and prepare to go off island. We'll go to my mom's for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And if you've been following me, if you look at last December's Christmas episodes, you'll get a little idea of how my mother decorates, and that is always just beautiful to go into her home and see her Santa tree and her angel tree. And I believe at the beginning of this episode, and maybe at the end as well, I will have included some footage of my decorations and some of the decorations my mother has given me over the years and how I've displayed them in the home. I love my tree. I went into this a little bit last year. It's usually pretty much the same. I add a couple of new ornaments each year, and this year I added this beautiful little aqua and white reindeer. I think we added another bird. My husband loves the birds, so we have our cardinal and some black-capped chickadees and some blue jays, all the birds that we see on the island. We have some owls, and so we're enjoying the tree. There's some musical instruments. My husband plays the bass, I play the guitar. I think we have some little instruments on here, some pine cones that my mother has given me over the years. And we keep it pretty simple. I do put some
wreaths on the windows, and I think you may have seen in one of the photos I took, I did buy some new pillows for my couch, and I'm very pleased with them. They're kind of an evergreen velvet and embossed with pine cones, so they really kind of perked up the white couch. Our house is pretty neutral, and so it really takes to a little bit of color. We did bring in some winter berries, and I did rescue a couple of poinsettias from Home Depot that seem to be thriving, and picked some greens, brought in some cedar and some pine so the house smells fresh. This is an artificial tree. In order to be able to put the a number of ornaments that I want to put on my tree, I kind of need the firmness of an artificial tree. And so it's just been really a glorious season so far, and I'm looking forward to going to my mom's for Christmas. Now, I haven't done a whole lot of knitting since we last talked. As you know, I was concentrating on that fisherman knit sweater for my sister-in-law. And I finished it, and I packaged it, and I delivered it, and she is thrilled. And right now I'm including some of the photos when I was knitting it. I made the decision to block it in pieces. I don't always do that because usually I'm working top down in the round, and so I just block the whole piece. But where I was most concerned about the perfect fit, and I have made that sweater before, and I've made it too big, I've made it too small, and I just wanted it to fit my sister-in-law perfectly. I took the time to get her measurements, and by blocking each piece individually, I was able to make sure that my armhole opening on the back and the front matched the armhole for the sleeve itself, and I got a perfect fit. And she tried it on, and I'm hoping maybe over the holidays when we go out for Christmas I can get some footage of her wearing it. The color's perfect. She has a reddish auburn hair tone, jet black eyes, beautiful skin. She really wears well green. The wooden buttons look perfect. I made a modification there too. The pattern calls for you to decrease 3 stitches and then cast on in the next row 3 stitches to make the buttonhole. And again, I've made this often enough that I know that's too loose of a buttonhole. I made it one time and used a pewter button, and it was too heavy for the seed stitch. I used leather one time with a shank, and it just kind of flopped. So I feel like I worked out a lot of the bugs in my previous attempts at making this, and really it's perfect. I used wooden buttons with 4 holes, so I've got a really nice join. And I used embroidery floss. Oh no, I didn't use embroidery floss. I thought I was going to use it, and then I decided to. So the Cascade 220 is the yarn I used, and it is in olive heather, and it's a 4-ply. So I split it into 2-ply, and then I split it again, and I isolated 1 ply. And that's what I used to sew on the buttons. And then I really did a good job of weaving. I wrapped it around, and then I ran it through the back, and I wove it in. And I felt, and the reason I changed my mind is I felt that the embroidery floss was a little slippery. I have had buttons kind of work themselves out and come undone. And so I felt like, well, that 100% wool and that the wearing of that and the wearing on the back of that sweater is going to fuse the single ply to the rest of the sweater. So I can't tell you how thrilled I am. And again, I'm going to thank Meg and her friend. Meg is a follower, and if you recall in the last episode, they sent me the original of that sweater. This is the Candide Aran pullover or cardigan for men and women, and I have posted this pattern on last episode's show notes. And they also, Meg and her friend also sent me the pattern for a hat and mittens that are the same pattern that can go along with this or be knitted separately. And a viewer asked me for that, and I promise you I will try to get that uploaded so that you can access that pattern as well. I don't know if it will be this week, but I will do that. I want everyone to have access to this pattern. So that was a joy to present that, and I found a really pretty box and some pretty tissue paper and wrapped that in a beautiful ribbon, and I had such a wonderful time knitting it, finishing it, packaging it, and then watching my sister-in-law open it. So the gift of giving are knits. And so I did want to share something with you on that topic. Now, I don't really follow the saints, but there is a saint that we're probably most of us familiar with because it's St. Francis of Assisi. And if we love gardening, or if you've walked through somebody's garden, you've probably seen a statue of St. Francis. And my mother has a St. Francis in her garden. And I'm showing you a picture of him. So I'm going to give you a little information about him. So St. Francis of Assisi lived between 1181 and 1226. He was an Italian mystic and a Catholic friar who founded the Order of the Franciscans. And the reason I'm bringing him up is kind of twofold. As I mentioned, and as my mother told you last Christmas, she worked in a beautiful Christmas shop that had, or a gift shop that had a Christmas annex. And she was the buyer for that Christmas annex, and she had collectibles and people who, added to their collection every year. And one of the most popular collections were the nativities, and they came in from the United States and from Germany and from Italy. And for years, my mother would give me a piece. And so now I have the manger and I have all the pieces, which I believe I'm showing you a photo of that as well. So it was St. Francis of Assisi who is really was arranged the first nativity scene as part of the annual Christmas celebration of the region that he lived in. So we really have St. Francis of Assisi to thank for the manger nativity scene that we Catholics will use, or Christians will use, or you will see oftentimes at Christmas. And so that's him. And he also became became customary for churches to hold ceremonies blessing animals on that feast day, because now he has a feast day. And so, for instance, you may live in a town that has the blessing of the animals. And so, once again, that's him. But here's why I really wanted to bring him up. He's been quoted for saying several things that we hear in our everyday life and also in the Catholic Bible. But this is one I love. He who works with his hands is a laborer. He who works with his hands and head is a craftsman. He who works with his hands, his head, and his heart is an artist. And I just love that. And I know that a lot of the designers who designed for Vogue Knitting over the years, and some of you also were members of 4-H, which in this country was like, not really like Girl Scouts, but in some way it was organized like Girl Scouts. And their motto was, I pledge my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health for better living in my club, community, country, and world. And so as I was knitting gifts and thinking about the holidays this year, I started to think about St. Francis and the nativity scene and the blessing of the animals, and his quote about, using your hands and your head and your heart. And then it made me think about 4-H. So I just thought I would share a little bit of that with you. And I'd be curious to know if any of you viewers were members of 4-H. So there are a few things that I'm working on for gifts, and I showed you these socks that I was making for myself. Well, as I was knitting them, I kept thinking about my niece, and my niece loves blues and greens, and I decided I'm giving these to my niece. So these will have to get blocked, and I just made these gorgeous socks for my brother, and this is that Regia 4-ply. I love this yarn, this gorgeous self-striping yarn. I do a reinforced heel flap and gusset for him. I made the leg a little longer than normal, so his work boots, they'll come right up above his work boots. So these are about ready. I'm gonna block and then wrap. And for my nephew, I am making the Purl SoHo classic ribbed hat pattern. I made this last year for my brother-in-law, and he really liked it. And this is gorgeous black extra fine merino yarn that I bought when I was in Italy. And as you know, I don't love to work in black, but this is just a knit one, purl one rib, and then some decreases for the crown. And as I was knitting this, I committed to knitting continental for the whole hat. So I feel like I finally have my purl stitch down and my tension comfortable, that I think I can make the transition, because I've still been using, and it's fine. I like going back and forth. English, continental, whatever you need to do for your body. But for my body, knitting continental really helps with my shoulder, with my wrists. And so this is almost done. Okay, so what have I been thinking about? I still have projects to finish, as you know, but I just needed something for after Christmas, something to excite me, something in a beautiful color, in a beautiful yarn that I haven't used before, just something completely different. And I was watching Fruity Knitting, and their most recent episode, they interviewed the mother-daughter makers behind Knitting for Olive. And if you haven't seen that episode, it's all in one episode, but it's a two-part interview. They are lovely. This mother and daughter are lovely. And they tell their story and how they got their name. They started with baby knitting and then have, now they have a book out with baby knits and adult knits. And so while I was watching that, I was thinking about one of the patterns they were showing. And let's see, I have that pattern right here. It's called the Fern Sweater. And I'm going to show you this, but I'm hopefully inserting a better photo too. So I saw this made up, and I had also seen this, I think another podcaster was knitting this. It may be Danish Musing maybe, but somebody else was knitting this in a kind of a frosty, icy, neutral color, and I said, ooh, that's what I want to make. So with that in mind, we were off island, and I went to our little town of historical town on the mainland of Wickford, and I went into my local yarn shop, the Mermaid's Purl, and she was carrying the Knitting for Olive mohair, and I found this color. And this color is called Dusty Aqua. It's 70% mohair and 30% silk. And this pattern is calling for a strand of mohair and a strand of merino. I mean, it gives you a lot of different options. You could use a cotton merino. I mean, but I wanted to do the merino and I wanted to do the mohair. They were not carrying the merino. So with the help of the yarn shop owner, I found this Moondrake merino fingering, 80% superwash merino and 20% nylon called Blue Sage. Look at those two colors together. It's gorgeous. The merino is slightly tonal. So I think after Christmas, when we get home, I might wind one of each of these up before Christmas and maybe work on a gauge if I have time. But my goal is to dive into this after Christmas and just enjoy this beautiful icy blue color and mohair and merino and make that gorgeous fern sweater. So this pattern is interesting because it's being offered in 2 different needle sizes depending on the size you choose. So I will just caution you to be very careful when you read through the pattern. There are a lot of choices. It's very size inclusive. You're going to go from extra small to 4XL. And so the measurements are in centimeters, the measurements are in inches. There's the sleeve length from the underarm to cuff. There's the chest, there's the finished bust. So I'm gonna just take my time. I bought the hard copy pattern. I could probably also put this into my knit companion, but I really wanna take my time, take my measurements, really think about how I want this to fit. So just a side note, I'm wearing the Ranunculus today. And I've only ever made it once, and I made it with a similar situation. I used a mohair and I carried it with a merino, I believe, fingering. And I love this. And I made the 3/4 sleeve, and I used the I-cord bind off for the sleeve. And the only concerns I've had with it is I made the cropped version, which is fine, because I bought these cute little faux leather pants with this belt, and I wear my little camisole underneath it. But I was thinking, wouldn't this color look great with these pants? So I don't want to make it too long. I don't want to make it too cropped. So I've got a lot to contemplate before I start knitting this. So as I said, it's broken up into 2 different sizes. So if you make the extra small, medium, XL, 2XL, or 4XL, you're going to use a 3.5 millimeter or 4 US for your rib, and you're going to use a 4.5 millimeter US 7 for the body. However, if you choose the small, large, or 3XL, it's recommended to use the 3.5 millimeter, which is a US 4, and a 4 millimeter, which is a US 6 circular needle for the body. And there's 2 different gauges. So I'm going to take my time. I think once you get going, it's going to be very, very, very easy. It's top down. It's in the round. There will be no seams. The pattern for that little lace work looks like once you get it, you've got it because it's just repeating. So this will be my first Knitting for Olive pattern using some Knitting for Olive yarn, and my first time trying Moondrake. I know Andrea Mowry often collaborates with this company using this yarn, so this is all going to be new and fun for me. Let's see, what else did I want to tell you about? I have one other finished project that I may just keep wrapped and with me, because you know, you're out, you're visiting, visiting family and friends. There could be a new girlfriend, there could be a new boyfriend. I don't know if we bump into somebody that I just want to give something to. So this is a Deborah Newton design. It was designed for Northlight Fiber using their yarn, and it's called Island Bird's Hat. And as you know, Northlight Fiber has sold off the mill, and I think there are some yarn shops around the country that may still be carrying their yarn, but you really could use anything. This was designed with Atlantic yarn in mind, in 2 colors and on a size 7 needle, a 7 and an 8. So, you know, you get your gauge, use whatever you want, use whatever colors you want. Yes, it is charted, but I want to show you, it's a very simple, fun chart. So I love this hat. It's got this tiny little tab on the top. I think it's pretty unisex, but I think my nephew has a new girlfriend. So I'm just going to have it with me. I'm going to have it wrapped up and ready to go. The other thing that I like to have with me when we go off visiting around Christmas is a panettone. Those of you from Italy or from Europe, you're probably very familiar with this, but panettone is a classic Christmas cake. I think it's more like a bread, really. It has candied fruit in it, as you can see. It has some candied fruit. It is delicious, just cut it as is. It's delicious warmed up with a little bit of butter on it. It also makes a great French toast, or I know that there's a breakfast recipe that a lot of people make, and I've made it too, with eggs and milk. It's like a custard, and you use bread, and some people use challah bread. But it's really great with panettone if you like dried fruit. So I will bring one of these to my mom's for us to have on Christmas morning, but I'll put an extra one in the car because you never know who you might bump into, or you might get an invite to have coffee with somebody. So, okay, so I'm feeling really good going into the holidays. I plan on baking today and tomorrow and maybe even Friday. I've made the dough for a cranberry orange shortbread. And I found this recipe online, and I will try to link it to my show notes. It's delicious. It was easy. I made 2 logs. I put one in the freezer and one I baked off right away. And when I went off for my mom's garden club luncheon, I brought a tin of those to just see, did everybody like them? And they liked them. So I'm going to make another batch to bring for Christmas. So it was orange zest, fresh orange juice, dried cranberries, of course, butter. And you've got to really work the butter. I used a pastry cutter, work the butter into the flour. But once you get that dough mixed up, you know, you put it in the refrigerator for a minimum of 72 hours. You know, you're going to put it into a log, and then you're just going to slice it and put it on your cookie sheet for 12 to 15 minutes. And so I like having that dough in the freezer. And I'm also going to make a ricotta Italian Christmas cookie that has little nonpareils on the top. My husband just brought in the ricotta cheese and the nonpareil, so that's on my list. And then I think I will make a classic sugar cookie. I usually make them in the shape of a Christmas tree and a little bit of royal icing and some sprinkles. And so I'll bring those cookies to my mom's house and put them on a tray and put them out Christmas Eve. So between the panettone and the cookies, I may make a cranberry orange bread. My sister-in-law will cook, and I will help her in the kitchen. But my sister-in-law is a great cook, so I want to make sure she has her space, and she's planning the menu on her own. So I look forward to that too. And hopefully we'll get a nice walk in. The weather looks good. It's going to be good for getting off and on the island. It looks like calm seas. I think we're going to be in the 40s, so maybe even a nice Christmas morning walk and a cup of coffee. I just want to say thank you for a wonderful year. It was a year in October, but now we're closing the year. I want to thank you for a wonderful year, for all of you who have followed me, and for any of you new viewers. I really was inspired by watching podcasts back during COVID, and now I'm constantly watching Mrs. Volgreen, The Republic of Me, The Knitter's Niche. I love Bridget's She Shed. I'm watching Fruity Knitting. I'm watching Danish Musings, I believe it is. There's so many, I can't even think of you all. And you bring so much joy in my life, and I hope I'm learning from you and bringing joy into your life as well. So happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, happy winter, happy December, and I hope I will see you in the new year. And I just wish you love, peace, joy, and use your hands, heart, and health, and give to your friends and your family, your community, and your world. And together, I think we can make a better world.